Let me say this to you plainly right from the start. Choosing to go no contact with a narcissist is one of the toughest, bravest decisions you will ever make in your life. And if you're here right now listening to this, it means one of two things. Either you've already taken that step, or you're standing at the edge of it, working up the courage to finally do it. But here's something you need to hear clearly. Just because you've decided you're done with them does not mean they've decided they're done with you. In fact, the exact moment you go quiet is often the exact moment their real strategy kicks into gear, because narcissists almost never just walk away and let it be. No, they plan, they plot, they sit back and they wait for their opening. Their silence isn't them respecting the boundary you set. It isn't them peacefully moving on with their life. It's them calculating, quietly figuring out their next move behind the scenes. And today, I want to pull that curtain back completely and show you what's really going on. I'm going to walk you through 7 hidden things a narcissist secretly wants from you the moment you cut them off. I'm not talking about the obvious drama everyone already expects. I'm talking about what's happening underneath, in the background, the things they're hoping you'll do without realizing it, the reactions they're quietly waiting to see, and why your silence never actually feels like rest to them. To them, it's a strategic problem to solve. So if you've ever second-guessed the choice you made, if you've ever wondered why it still feels like they have some invisible grip on your emotions, even now, stay with me through this. Because by the time we're finished, you'll see their entire playbook laid out clearly in front of you. And even better than that, you'll walk away knowing exactly how to come out on top. When you go no contact with a narcissist, it sets something off inside them, even if it doesn't show up as an obvious argument or a direct confrontation. Sometimes what it triggers is something small and quiet, a post, a like on an old photo, a story view that pops up out of nowhere, a short message that seems to come from nothing. Anything at all that proves to them they can still get under your skin. Because the second you go silent, their mind doesn't register that as closure. It registers it as a challenge, as a test of who really holds the power here. And trust me on this, they are watching closely. They keep track of your every move, even in stretches where it looks like they've completely forgotten you exist. Why would they bother? Because to them, your silence was never simply silence. It's a direct threat to the control they used to have over you. Narcissists run on attention the way the rest of us run on food and water. It genuinely does not matter to them whether that attention comes wrapped in love or in anger. Both count equally as fuel. So when you cut off contact, it's the equivalent of shutting off their oxygen supply. That peace you found in the silence, the calm you feel settling into your life, it's powerful and healing for you. But for them, it's absolutely unbearable. It confuses them. It frustrates them to their core. It makes them start questioning whether they've actually lost their grip on you for good. What they cannot tolerate more than almost anything else is not knowing how you feel about them right now. And what bothers them even more than that is the possibility that you might genuinely be doing well without them in your life. So what do they do about it? They start poking at you. At first it's subtle. They might view your story without ever sending a single word your way. They might post something deliberately vague that sounds like it's aimed directly at you. They might casually ask a mutual friend how you've been doing or leave some comment on an old post from your past, hoping it eventually finds its way to you. Every single one of these moves is bait. What they're fishing for is a reaction, any reaction at all, because a reaction proves to them that you're still emotionally in the game, even if you're convinced in your own mind that you're not. And here's where things get genuinely dangerous. Narcissists study your patterns closely. They know exactly what gets under your skin and what doesn't. If they can't get you to talk to them directly, they'll happily settle for making you feel something instead. If they can't pull you physically back into their orbit, they'll settle for taking up residence in your mind instead. They want you replaying your last fight over and over in your head. They want you checking their social media, wondering quietly if they're happy now, if they've moved on, if they even think about you at all. They want you feeling angry or feeling sad, because either one, even if you never show it outwardly, still feeds them the power they crave. They don't actually need you to send a text message. They just need confirmation that you still care on some level. That's the win for them, because as long as you still care, even a little, they still believe they control the game between you. The instant you react at all, even the smallest slip, a comment, a post that reads as a little too emotional, a shared quote that hits a little too close to home, they clock it immediately. And to them, it means the door is still cracked open. And if the doors open even slightly, they know they can slip back through whenever it suits them. Now let's get into the mind games they run during a stretch of no contact. Sometimes they'll go quiet entirely on purpose, hoping that silence makes you start wondering why. Why haven't they reached out at all? Did they really forget about you that fast? Did any of it ever mean anything to them in the first place? That silence you're experiencing from their end is staged. It was never peace on their part. It's provocation dressed up as indifference. They use their own absence as a tool to plant doubt in your mind about the choice you made. They're hoping that confusion eventually pushes you into breaking your own no contact rule. The moment you send that first text, the moment you reach out even briefly, it's over for you and a win for them. They've taken control right back. And understand this, they don't just hope for a reaction from you eventually. They fully expect it. They're counting on it happening. Deep down, they genuinely believe you won't be able to hold out. They believe you'll start missing them, start second-guessing every decision you made, and eventually cave in and reach out first. And if they can't get to you directly through a message, they'll come at you sideways instead. They'll post things that feel subtly aimed at you. They'll spread half-truths through people who might repeat them to you. They might suddenly start flaunting a brand new relationship out of nowhere. None of that behavior means they've genuinely moved on with their life. It means they want to make absolutely sure you're still watching, still paying attention. They need to confirm you still feel something, anything at all, because feelings translate directly into attention, and attention is what gives them their sense of control. Every single move they make while you're in no contact is calculated down to the detail. None of it is genuine growth or progress on their part. It's manipulation, plain and simple. They aren't moving forward with their life at all. They're actively trying to drag you backward into the same old cycle. They want to reset that painful loop you finally broke free of. They want to make sure that even while you stay silent, they're still occupying real estate inside your thoughts. And here's the encouraging part. Every single day you manage to stay quiet and hold your ground, you're taking back a small piece of your own strength. When a narcissist finally loses access to you completely, they don't suddenly wake up self-aware. They don't experience some genuine wave of remorse or regret the way a healthy person might. What happens instead is that they twist your silence into a weapon aimed straight at your own conscience, turning it into guilt. They want your silence to become a mirror that has you questioning yourself instead of them. They crave your guilt. They crave your second guessing. They crave watching you spiral into emotional confusion because they understand better than almost anyone that guilt is one of the strongest chains a person can be bound by. And if they can no longer reach you physically, they'll work relentlessly to live rent-free inside your mind instead. For them, your silence isn't just a rejection to shrug off. It's a direct hit to their ego, a genuine humiliation. But instead of ever facing that uncomfortable truth honestly, they rewrite the entire story to protect themselves. Suddenly, in their retelling, you're the cold one. You're the one who walked away without ever really trying to fix things. You become the villain of the whole story. This flip is powerful precisely because it makes you start questioning your own memory of what actually happened. You find yourself replaying every conversation, every argument you ever had, wondering where exactly things went wrong on your end. And that's exactly what they're hoping for. They want you trapped in that emotional loop, so deeply tangled in it that you actually start forgetting the very reasons you chose to go no contact in the first place. They want you dwelling on the good moments instead, the charm, the laughter, the early days, while quietly pushing the manipulation and the pain further out of view. They want you thinking, maybe I overreacted to all of this. Narcissists are experts at turning your own empathy into a weapon against you. That's actually part of why they were drawn to you in the first place. Your compassion, your loyalty, the depth of feeling you carry, everything they themselves lack is exactly what they feed on. And when guilting you into coming back doesn't work, they'll flip the script and try guilting you for leaving instead. They'll play the part of someone broken, abandoned, deeply misunderstood by you. They'll take on the role of the victim, and not always directly to your face either, but through mutual friends, through carefully worded social media posts, through a kind of pointed silence designed to tug at your conscience from a distance. It's manipulation that doesn't even require direct contact to work, and it's especially effective while you're still in the middle of healing. Because for a genuinely kind person, guilt can feel absolutely unbearable to carry. They know that about you. They're counting on it. Understand this clearly, they don't actually want your love back. What they want is your emotional energy. They want access to your inner turmoil, that invisible tension you carry late at night when your mind starts whispering, maybe I was too harsh with them, maybe I was too sensitive about the whole thing. That reaction is the entire goal. They hand you their emotional mess and then step back to watch and see whether you'll pick it up and clean it for them like you always used to. They don't actually want peace between you. They want confusion. They want your strength to feel like cruelty in your own mind and your healthy distance to feel like betrayal. And once that guilt starts growing, it stops whispering and starts screaming, and narcissists know exactly how to make that scream echo until it fills every corner of your thoughts. Even without any direct contact happening, they still want control over you. They still want to live rent-free somewhere in your mind. What they're chasing isn't the kind of obsession where you actively chase after them. It's the quieter kind, where you simply can't stop replaying what happened between you over and over. They want you wondering endlessly what you could have done differently to save things. They want you wondering what they're up to right now, in this moment. That's the real prize for them. If they can't have your time or your physical presence anymore, they'll happily settle for taking your peace of mind instead. Because to a narcissist, being remembered, being thought about, even being resented, is still a form of power over you. When you catch yourself replaying old arguments, imagining exactly what they might say if the two of you talked again, understand that's them still quietly pulling the strings from a distance. They built that loop inside your head very deliberately over time. They conditioned you to question yourself, to hold on to hope, to always try fixing things. But every single time you resist the pull to reach back out, you weaken that loop just a little bit more. Slowly, you start replacing their voice in your head with your own voice instead. You stop asking yourself, what if they finally change? And you start telling yourself instead, I deserve real calm in my life. And that shift right there is exactly where your real power begins to take root. Because narcissists can only survive in environments built on chaos. The more peace you choose for yourself, the less oxygen they have left to breathe. The longer you stay quiet and grounded, the more invisible their control over you gradually becomes. Your distance from them isn't a weakness, it's recovery in motion. It marks the end of their illusion over you and the beginning of your actual freedom. Catching yourself analyzing their every move, trying desperately to make sense of mixed signals, or constantly refreshing their social media to see if they've posted anything new. All of that is a kind of obsession, and obsession is energy you're handing over freely. It's attention, plain and simple. And they take real pleasure in knowing they still hold that much sway over you without ever having to say a single word out loud. To them, it confirms the bond between you isn't actually broken, just shifted into a different shape. They don't even need to speak to you anymore, because they've already claimed space inside your mind. This is exactly why relationships with narcissists so often end wrapped in confusion instead of clarity. They almost never give you real closure. They refuse to take responsibility for their part in things. They won't sit down and explain themselves honestly. And they will absolutely never acknowledge the pain they caused you. Instead, they vanish. They ghost you completely. They discard you like you never mattered. Or they turn cold overnight with zero warning, because deep down they understand that confusion is the fastest route to obsession. The human brain despises open-ended stories. It craves resolution and closure. So when someone disappears entirely or flips the whole narrative with no explanation offered, your mind races to fill in those blanks on its own, searching desperately for meaning inside the chaos they left behind. And that reaction is precisely what they're counting on. The more you sit there thinking it through, the more control they continue to hold over you. Sometimes they'll even scatter a little false hope right before they vanish. Maybe they brought up some vague future together. Maybe they offered just enough of an apology to leave you feeling uncertain rather than settled. Or maybe they simply said they needed a bit of space for a while. None of those comments were innocent throwaway lines. They were breadcrumbs, deliberate psychological hooks designed to keep you wondering whether they'll eventually come back, whether they actually meant what they said, whether you should just sit tight and wait it out. And every single second you spend caught in that mental loop counts as a win in their column. They want your healing process to drag on slowly. They want your sense of confidence to stay tied to whether they approve of you or not. They want their memory to keep interrupting your peace, your rest, your forward progress. Because as long as they still live somewhere in your thoughts, they still matter in some way. And for a narcissist, fading completely into irrelevance is the true nightmare they're desperate to avoid. This is exactly why detaching from a narcissist was never just about blocking their number or cutting off communication entirely. It's about reclaiming your actual mental and emotional space for yourself. As long as they're still occupying your thoughts, they don't even need to physically be present in your life to keep affecting it. They've essentially built a version of themselves that lives inside your head, replaying old moments, picking apart small details, making you second guess everything you know to be true. And the hardest part is that you might not even notice you're doing this to yourself. You might mistake it for a normal, natural part of the healing process. But to the narcissist, that lingering fixation of yours is actually a delayed source of supply. It feeds their ego even from a distance, even in complete silence. So even when there's zero contact happening between you, the game they're playing continues quietly, not through phone calls or text messages, but through the emotional residue they deliberately left behind in you. They're counting on you to carry it, to keep revisiting it, to keep reliving it over and over. That's the real goal, to remain unforgettable to you, even if the only way they can manage that is through the pain they caused. When a narcissist is confronted with your no contact, they rarely interpret it as an actual boundary you've set. Instead, they see it as nothing more than a pause in their game, a brief break before the next round starts up again. Deep down, they genuinely don't believe you're gone for good. They assume, somewhere in the back of their mind, that you'll eventually come back around. Maybe not right away, but eventually, someday. They count on that outcome because they've spent time conditioning you through repeated cycles, the love bombing, the devaluation, the chaos in between. They've trained your emotions to crave their attention, to fear the idea of losing them, and to keep seeking their approval even when it actively hurts you. So when you finally do pull away for good, they don't panic in the moment. They simply wait. They fully expect you to break first. They believe their influence over you is essentially timeless and unshakable. They know precisely what makes you feel guilty, what makes you doubt your own judgment, and what you still secretly hope might happen between you two. They've carefully shaped a version of themselves that's genuinely difficult to fully hate, even after everything they've put you through. So when you walk away for good, they don't register it as truly over. They tell themselves you just need some time to cool down, to start missing them again. They believe with real confidence that you'll eventually reach back out to them. Until that happens, they'll stay quiet, fully confident that you remain emotionally tied to them somewhere underneath it all. Sometimes they'll even try to twist your silence into a weapon against your reputation. They'll tell other people that you're being cold or immature, or that you abandon them without any real reason. They do this specifically to reframe the whole story, to position themselves as the actual victim in the situation. That's the trick they're pulling. If they can convince others that you overreacted, it keeps a door open for them to manipulate the narrative again down the line. And if you happen to feel guilty or misunderstood because of what they're saying, you might feel pulled to reach out just to explain your side, which is precisely what they're hoping will happen. Even in their own silence, their thinking never really shifts. In their mind, you're not actually done with them. You're just being emotional right now. They tell themselves you'll come back around once you've calmed down. That's exactly why so many narcissists don't rush to reach out the moment you go silent. It's not because they've genuinely moved on with their life. It's because they're busy calculating their next move. They're testing your resolve, seeing exactly how long it takes before you crumble. They want confirmation that the dependency they carefully built still lives somewhere inside you. And if you do end up reaching out, even just once, they take that as proof they were right all along. For them, this was never really about love in the first place. It's about ownership. They genuinely believe they still own a piece of your heart, and reaching out just confirms that belief for them. They count heavily on time working in their favor. They wait patiently for your anger to fade, for your clarity to blur a little at the edges, for the version of them living in your memory to soften over time. They understand exactly how nostalgia works on the human mind. Given enough time, you might start forgetting the constant anxiety, the manipulation, the sheer exhaustion of walking on eggshells around them every single day. You might end up only remembering the charm, the connection, the highs you shared together. They're counting on exactly that outcome. They let time quietly do their work for them. If they sense that you're genuinely starting to move on with your life, they'll subtly resurface just to stir up old emotions again. Maybe they'll send a simple message, just checking in on you out of nowhere. Maybe they'll share a song the two of you used to love, or bring up some old memory from your past together. None of these gestures are genuine signs of growth or real regret on their part. They're bait, carefully thought out and perfectly timed to land when you're most vulnerable. They want you wondering whether they've actually changed, whether they genuinely miss you, whether there's still some hope left between you. But in reality, all they're doing is quietly testing whether the door is still unlocked. The hardest part about staying in no contact was never really the silence itself. It's letting go of the fantasy underneath it all. The idea that one day they'll finally recognize your worth, finally treat you the way you always deserve to be treated, finally become the person they only ever pretended to be with you. Narcissists understand this fantasy exists, and they use it against you deliberately. They know you're craving answers, closure, some real understanding of what happened. You want to believe that all of it meant something real. That's exactly why they don't bother chasing after you. They don't feel any need to. In their mind, you'll eventually do all that emotional work for them. Once they lose direct access to you, their focus shifts elsewhere. One of the very first things they try to control is the story itself, the narrative other people hear. This isn't about earning admiration from others. It's about manipulation, plain and simple. Once you stop communicating with them directly, they know they can no longer reach you the normal way. So instead, they use other channels available to them, mutual friends, social media, shared social circles you both still move in. They start getting their version of events out there first, ahead of yours. They'll begin quietly planting small seeds of doubt about you in other people's minds. They'll say things like, "Honestly, I don't even know what happened. They just changed completely." Or, "I tried absolutely everything, but they wouldn't even talk to me anymore." Those words sound harmless enough on the surface, but they're deeply strategic underneath. They make you look unstable or unreasonably cold without ever sounding like a direct attack. Because narcissists tend to come across as charming and believable to people who don't know the full story. People generally end up siding with them instinctively. To outsiders looking in, they appear hurt, misunderstood, even victimized by the whole situation. And meanwhile, you become the one who seems distant, unreasonable, hard to understand. Image matters more to them than almost anything else. Being cast as the villain in their own story is genuinely one of their worst fears. So when you go no contact, it isn't only the loss of access to you that bothers them so deeply, it's the loss of control over how they're perceived by everyone around them. You leaving behind creates an open space in their story, and they rush immediately to fill that space with lies and convenient half-truths. They cannot stand the possibility that people might eventually hear your side of things or start seeing who they truly are underneath the charm. So they construct an entirely new version of events where you become the actual problem. You're the one who hurt them. You're the reason everything ultimately fell apart. Sometimes they don't even need to say very much at all. They'll simply post a vague quote about betrayal or about healing from toxic people, perfectly timed to make it look like they're the one recovering from someone exactly like you. It's all a performance, carefully staged from start to finish. But it works precisely because nobody else witnessed what you actually went through together. They never saw the manipulation firsthand, the chaos behind closed doors, the silent punishments you endured. They only ever see the version the narcissist decides to show them. And that's exactly why protecting your peace has to mean more than simply blocking their number. It means refusing to keep explaining yourself to people who have already committed to misunderstanding you no matter what you say. Because in the end, silence becomes real power once it's chosen deliberately. Detachment becomes an actual victory once you choose it for yourself. And the very moment you stop trying to prove your truth to people who were never going to believe it anyway, that's the moment your real healing finally begins.